Before we begin, thank you very much to, hey, won't you believe in him? That even if there is no God or Buddha, there is Kamen Rider? For joining the Patreon campaign. That's not blasphemy. That is a direct reference and quote from a Kamen Rider manga. It is a weird, deep-cut meme from the tokusatsu community. So if you clicked on Transformers and weren't expecting that, it's referential. I thought I was done with the shout-outs, but someone said, one more, you're not quite done. So now I'm caught up on the shout-outs. Now we are completely free and clear. But thank you very much for doing so. Do appreciate it. So let's talk about the video games in the Transformers. We don't do this very often. It's been a hot minute since we talked Transformer video games. And the truth of the matter is, Transformer video games really don't give me a whole lot to discuss. Because to be quite honest with you, we don't have a great record. We do not have a great record of being in the video game market. So whenever I try to put together something video game based, it usually comes down to like just me talking about the ones I like the most. But we've done that. I've had a whole top 10 list of like the Transformer video games. We did a whole history of the games. But I wanted a video where I kind of focused in on which one is the worst. Not a top 10 or bottom 10 in that case, but just kind of like a roundabout discussion of how bad the Transformer games have been and which ones are the worst I have ever played. So that's kind of where we are today. And we're going to explore a litany of games that are considered bad for various reasons. Now, for the sake of my sanity, we're not including any mobile games. Because frankly, I've played maybe a few minutes of 2 of them. So don't blame me if this feels a little bit incomplete. I know there is also a lot of mobile shovelware out there for Transformers, but we're going to stick to console and PC releases. Now, it's not to say, I say we have a troubled history with the Transformers video games, and we do. It's, for some reason, no matter how popular this franchise is, good video games tend to elude us. I mean, I can count basically on one hand what they are. You've got the War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron games. You've got Transformers Armada on the PS2, Transformers Devastation, obviously. You've got, weirdly enough, the 07 DS game. We'll talk about that one here in a bit. Oh, is there anything else? What other ones are good? There's not a lot. There's really not a lot. But the franchise itself in the video game department is almost like the opposite of like the Legend of Zelda franchise, where like objectively they really don't put out bad games. There's ones that aren't as good as others, but a lot of times when you call it bad, it's down to personal preference in how the game is, and objectively, Legend of Zelda really only has the CDI games to go to for bad. We have the opposite problem. We have the opposite problem of, like, I've got too many bad to mention. So, like I said, War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, the good games. Weirdly enough, I never finished Fall of Cybertron. I've said this a few times. I still don't know why. But I get bored with that game every time I hit the Jazz and Cliff Jumper level. 3 times I've tried to play it, including once on stream. 3 times I've not been able to get past that point. Not out of difficulty, out of lack of care. I just don't want to play anymore. But that said, I'm aware it went bad. If you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. Rise of the Dark Spark is infamously bad. Now, I will be honest, I haven't played it. I have a copy of it. I've never gotten around to trying it out and just seeing how bad it got. All I know is this thing was universally panned, even by people who liked War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron. Probably because they just kind of threw assets together to try and cobble one more game together before they lost their license. Because that's the vibe of it, right? You've got War for Cybertron models in here and gameplay, but you also have the movie games. So for no reason whatsoever, we've mixed in Age of Extinction into your Fall of Cybertron, and it makes no sense whatsoever, and it makes for a nonsensical game that everyone hated. I want to give that one a fair shake at some point, at the very least, to know what went wrong. But yeah, it's a rougher experience. It's a rougher experience. One of the other games that made me think of was Transformers Prime, the game, which thankfully got left out of that mess. And here's the thing. I didn't mind my time in this one. I know not a lot of people liked this game either, but I have played this one. I played the Wii U version, not the Wii, thank God. But I didn't mind my experience in it. Yeah, it's kind of run-of-the-mill, like, 3D beat 'em up. But you know what? It worked for what it was. I felt like I was playing a Transformers Prime game. Now, granted, I didn't get to play a whole lot of it, so maybe it got more middling as it went on. Maybe it got a lot more repetitive and just wasn't fun to pick up or just continue. But I didn't mind my time in it to the point where, yeah, like, if I hadn't gotten distracted by games that I knew were going to be good, I probably would have kept going. I probably would have continued that game just to see what it was like all the way through. Might do that at some point. Might be a weird stream to do. I have to hook up my Wii U for that. Oh, that hasn't been hooked up in so long. Last time I messed with my Wii U, I was gutting the internal memory so I could play, like, one of the Lego games. It took up a ton. That's random. Let's move on here. So, the other half of the Darkspark is the live-action-based video games. And I will admit, most of these are very middling for me. I remember playing the 07 movie game and the Revenge of the Fallen game. I don't remember being terribly impressed by either, probably because, you can tell, I'm having a hard time remembering my experience in them. So they didn't leave much impression. But for the most part, when it comes to the movie-based games, I tend to think of them as just very typical, just run and gun type games. The only real memory I have of playing that game is putting in a code that let me play as G1 Megatron, complete with a floating gun alt mode. That was kind of fun. That I got a kick out of. Like, okay, cool, you threw some G1 Easter eggs in, and they're stupid and silly. I like it. That's what I remember doing. I remember, like, I rented that game so I could just play as G1 Optimus and Megatron. Didn't care about the rest of it. So that was fun. That was fun for what it was. But granted, like, we never hit AAA levels, obviously. Weirdly enough, like I mentioned, the DS game turned out really good, and I don't know why it did. So again, it's more like 3D beat 'em up, but you get to customize your Transformer. If you're playing the Decepticon version, you get to buddy up with Keith David's version of Barricade. Of course that's gonna be cool. Of course that's gonna be cool. I get to listen to Keith David the whole time. There's no situation where his voice doesn't make things better. This is weird. Like, everyone kind of universally agreed that this was a good game, and it really shouldn't have been. It really shouldn't have been, but it was. So a lot of people still stand this one, and so do I. So do I. This one is good. This is a case for game preservation. I kind of want to see this one brought out of the archive if we can ever work it out with Activision. If we're going to stick with the DS for a bit, though, we'll talk briefly about Transformers Animated, the game. This is a weird one. So, you can call this a bad game, essentially because it's really not what you want out of a Transformer experience. It's a platform puzzle game. Only a few bits of action segments. This side game where you play as Prowl in chase sequences, but for the most part, you're navigating Bulkhead, Bumblebee, and Optimus through levels using their unique abilities, and trying to figure out how to arrange your characters to get a path across to the end of the level. And frankly, for what it is, it's good. It does its platform puzzle thing fairly well. The issue is, that's not what I want to play. I want to go, like, I want to go beat up Decepticons. I want to thwart Megatron. I don't want to go through a high-rise building trying to chop through walls with Optimus while Bulkhead weighs down elevators for Bumblebee to get up. It's just such a weird formatting, you know? It doesn't fit. It's like making a Doom game that is based on Mario Party. I mean, it's gonna be a blast. It might be funny, but it certainly isn't gonna be the experience I want out of the franchise, you know? So there's that. Not bad in what it does, but kind of inherently bad because it's not what I really wanted it to be. And as long as we're still in the portable realm, let's get this one out of the way too. The Beast Wars fighting game on the Game Boy Color. This one is cute. Now, being a fighting game with only 2 face buttons, that's pretty rough. As someone who had Street Fighter Alpha on a Game Boy Color, it's rough. It's not a good experience when you only have 2 buttons. But it's inoffensive, it's cutesy, it's a little bit amusing, you know, like, characters are super deformed and kind of cute. You have Star Upper, who never got to be in anything else. So, you know what? Okay, I give it a pass. You might call it objectively bad, especially if you're really into fighting games. I thought it was kind of goofy for what it was. So, there you go. I mean, if I'm going to talk about fighting games for Transformers, people are going to argue with me that the Transmetal game was bad, and I would argue against you. Is it poorly made? Yes, it is kind of poorly made, but I will give them all the credit that I possibly can. I think it's really cool that they actually went through the trouble of getting the voice actors in to do their lines, for the most part. I want to say a few of them had substitutes. I think Black Arachnia was substituted in. It's like, I remember the main characters. Main characters all covered. Like your Optimus, Optimus was correct. Rat Trap, Scott McNeil was all correct. All his characters. But then Black Arachnia was a hidden character, so I don't think they brought Venus in for that one. It's a dumb game. I will fully admit it's a dumb game. It don't look the best, but you know what? I had a lot of fun when I got to experience it. Good luck experiencing it, by the way. So once upon a time, if you caught this on the sales rack at Blockbuster, this was a Blockbuster exclusive rental. And if you were lucky, you caught the store when they were selling off the old games that weren't doing well anymore. And you could probably walk out of this one for like $10. Today, it costs over $450 to get this game with box. So have fun with that. Game preservation and digitizing games is wonderful, by the way. So, before we get into like the really bad nitty-gritty stuff, and we really talk about how awful it gets, we are going to also mention the newest console game, which is Earthspark Expedition. I bought this game to potentially make video content from. I bought it, put it in, played it for 10 minutes, and then shut it off and went, I can't play this unless I'm recording. Because the reaction I had to just the first 10 minutes of that game is kind of visceral. So I don't want any other response to that game to be ruined. I definitely want to do this. I am strongly debating doing this as like a weekly series. Not only because I really want to cover the game, not only that I really want to see how bad it gets, because it really is kind of a, it's a shovelware game from a shovelware company. If you know, if you've paid attention to anything, Outright Games just does shovelware. None of their games are that good, but they're cheap to make, so they're... And I want to get this captured. I wanted to do like a full series on this one. So that's coming. Let me know in the comments if that is something you'd be interested in seeing. I know I don't do like Let's Play content, but I do think it's worth going through this one and fully experiencing together because, good lord, if the rest of the game is anything like the first 10 minutes, oh, it should be funny. If we're getting into the really bad, we have to get into the older games. Because frankly, Transformers has this gigantic lull between the modern era and past era where there's no games whatsoever, but we actually had a good run of early ones. I say good run, none of the games were that good. I have played the Commodore 64 game. I believe we did a video for that one just to kind of explore it together. I'm not going to hold anything against this one because we barely figured out at the time how to make a video game in the first place. So I can't really, I can't really like make fun of it for the fact that, the graphics are terrible, the controls are terrible, and it's very hard to tell where you're supposed to go or what you're supposed to do. Because it is, but it's a Commodore 64 game. We were lucky that character moved right when you hit right. So I'm not going to begrudge it too much. That said, if we bump this up to NES, or rather the Famicom, we do get into an era where we're making some pretty concrete games. In fact, there's some games on the NES that are still really good games and hold up really, really well. I am looking at you, Mario 3. Any given Mega Man. Maybe not the first. But if we go and take a look at Transformers there, we look at Headmasters on the disk system. Yeah, this was a disk drive game, which there were barely any of these on the NES, but here you go. And for the extra power and memory, it does look a whole lot better than other games that we could be talking about right now. It still had its flaws. It still doesn't play well. So the reality here is that if you're watching this video, me talking about Transformers video games and how bad they get, and what is the worst game I've ever played, you really want to hear Convoy no Nazo. This was Plastic Addict Episode 10, my first and only video game review for that series. And yeah, we had a nightmare of a time going through this game. So, it's an inept game. It is inept. There are elements to it that actually seem well designed. The sprite work is fine. I don't have to take any issue with that. It just feels lazy. You have you only have one hit before you die. So the game gets really, really repetitive, really, really fast. You only have like 3 or 4 songs in the entire game. Like a song that plays during the level, song that plays when you're battling a boss, the ending theme, and then like incidentals here and there. So it sounds very bad. But honestly, it really just comes down to lazy, quick design. So you had stages where it was the same stage going backward. You had some stages that were just the previous stages flipped. You had boss fights that consisted of fighting a random, miniature moon thing? The most infamous one is fighting the Decepticon symbols at the end of the stage. You fought Menasor, though, and Menasor just kind of waved up and down and fired guns at you. You fought Megatron. He just kind of waved up and down and fired guns at you. And then the final boss is Tripticon. You'll never guess how he fights. The game is awful. The game is absolutely awful. But again, we're in an era where it was kind of rough banking a game in the first place, and there's elements to that game that are actually well made. I just feel like they didn't want to put a whole lot of effort into it. They clearly didn't play test it. But if we're talking about the most unpleasant experience I ever had playing a Transformers video game, we need to talk about the Beast Wars game. With some of these others, I can appreciate just how bad they were in an almost amusing way. One that I really should have included in this list was Transformers Tatakai for the PS2. It is again a middling 3D beat-em-up game. with incredibly bad voice acting. But the character models look nice, and I have an ironic joy in that game. Hence why it was left off the video. However, I can't say that of the Beast Wars games. I can find some amusement in the old Famicom games just because of how, like, the way that they are poorly made. With Beast Wars, there's no joy. Beast Wars is just a painful video game experience. You are running around a jagged polygon world that barely looks like anything. You've got a black sky like you are lost in a void. You aren't really fighting, other characters from the show. You're playing as a Maximal or Predacon, but you're really just fighting guns that pop out of the ground and like little random drones that have nothing to do with anything and don't look like anything you recognize. There are terrible sequences that are very hard to pass by. The easiest difficulty is still brutally difficult. You have a stage where you can kind of play as Air Razor and Pterosaur. I think Pterosaur. I can't remember who the flyer for the Predacon is. But yeah, you have a weird like in-between segment. The only thing to credit the game for is there's a little bit of extra mainframe animation in existence because of the opening and the two endings of the game. And that's literally the only joy to take away. This is incredibly unpleasant to play. I remember streaming this. I played this for like 2 hours. I could make almost no progression whatsoever because the game was brutally difficult. And I quit playing out of utter frustration. I was having no fun whatsoever. By far, this is the least amount of fun I've ever had with a video game. Even like Convoy no Nazo, I still kind of laugh at as I'm playing it for how bad it is. There's just something about the Beast Wars game that's worse. Something about it just like puts me off even more. So that is the worst game I've ever played for Transformers. Obviously, like I said, I haven't played them all. Haven't played a lot of the mobile slop games. I'm sure there's plenty of bad ones in there if I really wanted to dig. I don't. But we're going to leave it at that today. So if you got to play the PS1 game, share your trauma in the comments below. And that's going to do it for me today. Thank you all for watching. I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.